Hello, Danielle DeGraff here, holistic health coach and personal trainer. Joining me is Dr. Nick Wilson.
Hey guys.
So thankful you're here today. We're going to be talking about some pretty sticky stuff that we all need to know about.
Sticky is the right word.
Toxins.
Toxins.
We're actually going to be talking about 3 ways cells respond to chemical injuries and how to detox from home naturally.
Yep.
And on a budget.
That's right. And so we're gonna talk about the 7 tips where you can detox naturally from home and the 5 most common and also most deadly toxins. So we are gonna expose that today and have some fun, huh?
That's right. We're gonna have fun.
Yep.
Great. So starting out, I want to know, Dr. Wilson, you've been studying just how the body works for years, and you've just invested your life into helping people live their healthiest life.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know, why is detoxing a good idea? I've heard it thrown around so often. Like, what is the purpose of detoxing? Why is it even a big deal?
Well, to answer that question, you have to go back and look at the cell and how a cell responds to chemical injury and onslaught. And so there's a lot of people out there who will say, you never need to detox, you don't need to concern yourself with chemicals, and really there's this whole other side of healthcare, let's just say, that really doesn't concern themselves with chemical exposure at all. But go back to physiology, how a cell actually responds to chemical onslaught, and I've got, I think, a good demonstration here. So we've got a chemical. Okay, so this is a chemical exposure, and this is a healthy cell here. So we have a chemical exposure to a healthy cell. The cell responds in 3 different ways to chemical exposure. Either a healthy cell then becomes an injured cell, which happens whenever there's any type of chemical exposure whatsoever. Now that injured cell, it now can either do one of 3 things. It either goes back and rebuilds and rejuvenates and repairs, and now that cell is a healthy cell. Which the body, thank God, the body's constantly adapting and changing to our chemical environment, right?
Right.
So the other way is when the DNA actually changes. So an injured cell and the DNA changes, then all of a sudden now you have what we consider a cancer cell. And that's where the DNA is actually damaged itself. And the third way is the DNA just is not able to keep up with the chemical onslaught. This is where you have somebody who, let's just use an extreme scenario. Someone who is extremely exposed to a lot of chemicals all at once. You see this with people going through chemotherapy, unfortunately. Those who have been exposed to huge amounts of radiation all at one time. You see that. And then we have cellular death. Now the good news is the body, the vast majority of the time, is going to recreate, rebuild, rejuvenate, and repair and go back to a healthy cell. The challenge is when it doesn't. And that's why we have to know what really the top chemicals are that we're exposed to, avoid those, and make sure we're getting this stuff out of our systems and out of our homes.
Yeah, so we're talking about cell health, and when we have healthy cells, we function well, right?
Happy, healthy cells is...
Happy life.
Yeah, because it creates a happy life, right?
Yeah, it's true. Like, there's a lot of sickness and disease when you find unhealthy cells, and so this is really important. And now the question is, it's everywhere. Like when you're sharing, when you're talking about chemicals, it's in everything. So it helps to simplify, and that's what we're hoping to do today, is simplify the top toxic 5.
The top
toxic 5.
You got it. So listen, so when working with patients, as we're seeing patients who start out and we do testing and we find out how toxic they really are. Right. And it's always kind of, I would say that it's almost like frightening sometimes when we see how toxic people are. And there's normal people, many times, that are just walking, maybe thin, and maybe not having a ton of symptoms or any necessarily like big warning signs, but here they are. They come back when they're testing, and they are extremely toxic, and it's just a chemical time bomb that is just waiting, unfortunately. And so there's ways to pull this out of your system when it comes to toxicity and be smart about it. The people we work with and help with do that. You retest and you find out that there are ways to pull toxins out of the system, but you can't do that without stopping the bleeding, if that makes sense.
Right.
So you gotta stop the exposure, if you will. And so really the toxic top 5, number 1 is water.
Yeah.
Is our water system. So tap water is a big one. And why is that? Well, there's a couple of reasons why tap water is so toxic. Because one of the primary polluters are large-scale industrial farms and confined animal feeding lots that actually goes into our water system. And so think about all the things that we do with industrialization, with our farming, and all the offshooting that happens there gets into our water system. And now we have old pipes. And so old pipes, what the EPA estimated is that our old pipes, that they are 10 years expired many times. Now you've got lead contamination, you've got mercury problems, fluoride issues with that.
And these are all going to our plants and our crops?
Plants, crops, and back into our water system.
Oh, gosh.
The other challenge is that we, with the average person now filling 12 prescriptions every single year, what's happening is we are dumping our medications down the toilet, or we're urinating our medications out into the toilet, and what's happening is that gets recycled into our water systems as well.
So we can be showering in someone else's medications.
Well, and think about all the people who drink out of tap water.
Yeah,
So they're
just
drinking it right out of, and you say, well, I do it out of the refrigerator. Well, that doesn't filter out many of these known contaminants, fluoride being one of them. Antidepressants in our water system is a huge one. Birth control in our water system is a big one.
Wow.
You're like, how in the world did that get there? Well, it's because these things get flushed down and then recycled in. And you'd think these things get filtered out, but they really don't.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, so one of the big, and we'll talk about like what to do about all these things,
absolutely.
but right now we're just talking about that.
The top 5.
Yeah, toxic top 5. So, so water is definitely number 1.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And the next one, you were talking a little bit about just modern agricultural practices.
Yep. Yep. So what I mean by modern agricultural practices are, think about what we do with farming now. It's not like it was when our grandparents were around. You think about it's not the farmer who's out there with his hoe, right, in the barn.
Right.
It's really this mass production farming that is happening now with genetic modified food. We're growing food bigger, faster than we ever have before. We're spraying our crops with pesticides and herbicides. And there's a big lawsuit on Bayer Monsanto for the chemical glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup. And so we know that it's contributing to abnormal human effects when it comes to health effects. We know it's contributing to things like cancer, autoimmunity. There's been links to autoimmunity. We know that these things, when it comes to like grass-fed meats versus grain-fed meats, we know there's a vast difference. And the modern agricultural practices are, let's grow the cow bigger, let's grow them fatter, faster, and so that's why we feed them grains, and then we consume that. And you've heard the term, you are what you eat.
Right.
No, you are what your food ate. That's really what it
Right.
is. You are what your food ate. So if your food has been chemically manipulated, chemically modified, injected with antibiotics, given growth hormones, and now we expect ourselves to be healthy while eating this stuff, there's no chance. And so one of the main things on this is we have to recognize where our food is actually coming from, and also the practices that the farm and the farmers are using in order to get it to our plates.
Yes, so our food choices is critical, like where we get our food from and how it's treated.
Your food might be toxic. Is your food toxic? Hopefully
Yes.
not.
Number 3, household cleaning.
Yeah, so
Products, tell me more.
household cleaners and cosmetics on
Yes.
this. And so cleaners and cosmetics. So did you know that the foaming agents that you see with some of the common soaps, some of the common toothpastes, that there are actually chemicals that have been known to harm human health?
It causes foaming in the products.
Yep. And
Wow.
so things like common shampoos, many of the lotions have what's called DEA in them. And DEA is known to cause kidney problems, is known to be linked to cancer. It's been known to cause respiratory problems. And just think about all the times you're in the shower and you're soaping up and it's foaming, and then you're just putting them directly on your body.
Yep.
What goes on your skin gets into your body. Think about how does that work. Think about nicotine patches. Think about progesterone creams and the creams that people put on their skins. That gets into the body, into the blood system, and then circulates. And so what are we unintentionally putting on our body? The cosmetics with men who, with antiperspirants. I say men because many men they'll put on an antiperspirant and not know that it has aluminum in the antiperspirant. And that's another whole subject of aluminum toxicity. Women who put an antiperspirant underneath their arms, and we say, well, I don't want to sweat. Well, you do want to sweat because that's the body's natural detoxifier, the natural detoxifying system. If you're clogging the ducts there, think about what's not coming out, toxins. And we wonder why we're getting these nodules between, underneath our arm there and on our breast. And you think about it, well, we're blocking our body's natural detoxifiers.
That's huge. So looking at what we're putting on our body, what we're exposing ourselves to externally, internally, that's huge.
And when it comes to household cleaners,
Yeah.
this is why we want to green our household cleaners. It's so important. The EPA estimated that our indoor environment is 4 to 6 times more toxic than our outdoor environment. In a new home build, it's 100 times more toxic.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's from the EPA, their estimations. And so I'm building a new home, so that freaks me out, right?
Yeah.
So, how do you navigate this stuff when you have new materials? Well, there's ways around it. There's using clean materials, and then there's just off-gassing that must happen.
Yeah, doing the best you can. And we'll talk more about tips on how to clean up your home.
Yeah, and there's more, and there's not a lot of people who are building new homes, but
Right.
but they are, what are they doing? Right now, especially right now,
Remodeling.
fragrance.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Fragrances, they're the Glade candles they're plugging in with the scents.
Yeah.
You know when you're healthy, when you walk into a room and you smell scent and it should not exist, and there's a visceral reaction that happens.
Yeah. I get headaches.
That's a healthy
Yes.
response to
Yes.
chemical onslaught. Your body's telling you, hey, you're damaging my cells right now. Stop
Yeah.
damaging my cells, because I only have one of 3 routes. I become a cancer cell, dead cell, or I rejuvenate and repair. But if you keep doing that, I'm going to go the other 2 directions: cancer
Yeah.
cell, healthy cell. So it's headaches when you're exposed to chemicals. Great, that's a
Yeah.
huge blessing.
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot that we don't know. I mean, there's a lot that's advertised out there. Just like smoking was okay and advertised and promoted, and we didn't realize it was a toxin, and we keep going back to it. So it's good that we're bringing this to light, so we can really change up what we're doing at home for our families, for ourselves, and for our future.
Yeah, 100%.
So, you mentioned a little bit about aluminum and heavy metals. What places are we finding heavy metals?
Yeah, so you get heavy metals from a lot of different places. I mentioned the lead pipes. So aluminum technically is not a heavy metal. It's a heavier metal, but it's not in the heavy metal category. But things like mercury, and that's where we used to hear about mercury. The thermometers that people just play with the mercury, and now we know how toxic that really is.
Right.
Even if you drop mercury in a dental office, they have to wear hazmat suits and they have to call biohazardous waste.
Wow.
And so we know how chemically toxic this is. And I mentioned dentistry. That's a big source of it because of the old amalgam fillings. Many people still have fillings in their mouth, leaching, that it unfortunately creates toxicity. You think about where else mercury is coming from. It's mercury preservatives in many of the childhood vaccinations and some of the flu shots in the form of thimerosal. You think about some of the other lead-based paints that we have, and then arsenic is another big challenge when it comes to toxicity. Arsenic, again, they injected chickens with arsenic,
Really?
not, which is a big source. But when we test people, we're seeing lead, we're seeing mercury, we're seeing aluminum. In aluminum, it's obvious the aluminum foil that you're wrapping your food with and cooking with that at high heats. What else are we doing with it? We're putting it on a pan and then we're cooking our cookies. But then you get it in many baked goods. Many medications actually have aluminum toxicity. So it's just really coming from a lot of different places that we have to recognize.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And one of the biggest hidden toxin or way of destroying your cell function is actually EMFs. So it's hidden, it's sneaky. Can you tell us a little bit more about EMFs?
Okay, so this is a bonus because number 5 is actually medication.
Oh,
Medication
jumped
is actually the leading cause of toxicity because the average American is now filling 12 prescriptions every year.
Yes.
So think about that. Every year there's 12 prescriptions. That's average. And so there's some people who are on more. I'm not taking any. And so think about that. Someone's taking mine. And so the reality is that antidepressants are at an all-time high. Birth control is at an all-time high. These things are both ending up in our water systems. And so it's a double toxicity effect. Even if you're not actually taking the medication, you're probably getting it on the back end somewhere.
Yeah.
And just, and some people, medications are life-saving in some different areas and they need it, but the vast majority of them are being spent on chronic conditions that are lifestyle related. And lifestyle-induced things like heart disease, things like diabetes, and things like, unfortunately, you talk about high blood pressure and how many people are on a high blood pressure medication or a medication to combat cholesterol. And there's lots of arguments about the cholesterol myth linked to heart disease, but the reality is that Lipitor, Zocor, Crestor, Simvastatin are some of the top-selling statins to actually lower cholesterol. Why does cholesterol go up? Well, we know that's lifestyle-induced.
It's not going to the root cause of what's actually causing the issue.
Yeah, and then you factor in all this, where we're getting a lot of our toxicity from, and then again, we're testing patients and finding out, and as we're working with people, we're finding out, and this is the cool thing, is that as you're able to get this stuff out and start rebuilding health, it's like the person comes back to life again. It's incredible. Like the eyes become brighter, the skin, and like the clarity of thought is better, and it's like, what's really cool is the body's constantly doing this. Boom, 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 constantly trying to go towards that healthy cell, constantly trying to rebuild, rejuvenate, repair. it doesn't need a lot of help, just needs no interference. We got to stop interfering, stop the chemical onslaught, and allow the bodies to start to rebuild, rejuvenate, repair. And there's some cells that just need to be cleaned up and detoxed, so it's not a chemical, continuously chemical conundrum there that happens. Because when a toxin enters the body, the unfortunate thing that happens is it gets into fat cells, because many of them are fat soluble, and then all of a sudden it creates this hormonal disruption that's pretty constant unless you're intentional about getting this stuff out.
Right.
Getting the colon cleansed is really important because, again, this is one of the strong links to colon cancer and colon type problems, and endocrine disruption, which means hormone disruption. So we need to be able to start the process of the body, allowing the liver, gallbladder, kidneys, the lymph system, the skin to detoxify and get this stuff out of there.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the consequence with dealing with medications. Is sometimes there's acute injury, there's a need for acute, but then when you're talking about chronic, the body's having to compromise, and there's a lot of issues that come from just introducing that one drug. Your body's trying to work overtime, and there's a lot of consequences with what you're putting into your body.
Okay, so you mentioned one. It's not an actual toxin.
What's that?
And you mentioned it.
I mentioned what? Oh, EMFs?
It's not an actual toxin, but we should be talking about
yes,
this because
yes.
EMFs, it stands for electromagnetic frequencies. And we know that, so we know these things right here, right? we know that it emits a level of electromagnetic frequency, and so do computers. I could hold up a computer right now. We know that outlets, they all emit some level of radiation from them. And we could be freaked out about this and walk around and tinfoil our entire bodies, right? By the way, I did tinfoil. There's certain EMF reducers and blockers that you can do. So in a new home build, if you want to reduce EMFs, we can have a whole guide on this because there's ways to reduce your EMFs in your household. But what's really interesting is you can block some of these signals, and there's an EMF reader that you can actually pick up on this stuff and test it and see how it's going down over time.
That's awesome.
So, but we have to understand this, especially with the rolling out of what's called 5G. And 5G has been, there's been so many animal studies. I did a whole podcast episode with Dr. Libby Darnell, about talking about how harmful to animals this has been, and there's dozens and actually now hundreds of peer-reviewed research articles that show how bad it is for animal health, and yet here we are just rolling this out. And again, this is a whole other topic, but EMF should be included in the conversation about toxins.
Absolutely.
Even though it's not a chemical,
radiation,
it's still
disruption,
toxic.
to cells.
It's still going to damage that cell, and it might not be in the form of a bottle. It could be in the form of 5G that gets flipped on.
Absolutely. I actually have a blocking safe sleeve
me
on
too.
my phone.
Boom.
So I always talk with it closed, and that way if I'm having it in my bag or something, it's never against my body.
Yeah, and a safe sleeve can help. I've got one too, but when we did the testing on the safe sleeve and we took the phone out of the safe sleeve, yes, it went up higher, but even with the safe sleeve on, it was still emitting. So now what we're doing, and I guess I'm going to jump right into really the 7 steps to lifestyle detox and get this stuff from the comfort of your own home to be able to get this stuff and stop the chemical exposure and start the process of detoxifying. Because the reality is yes, we work with a lot of patients to help them detoxify their body, regain health. We do customized testing. We do all of these things in order to know exactly what that person needs. And that was developed out of just working with so many patients and feeling like, man, there's no one as their wellness quarterback right now. There's no one managing their health and wellness. They're on all kinds of supplements that don't make sense. They're certainly on medications that they don't want to be on. And so that's what really was birthed out of that, to help these people have a customized approach when it comes to their health. But we have to stop the chemical onslaught.
Right.
We have to. And so there's 7 steps in order to stop the chemical onslaught. And number 1 is go organic.
Yeah.
Gotta go organic. So we talk about in the grocery store. Look at the PLU number, and you'll see if the PLU number. What's the PLU number? It's what's on the vegetables and fruits. If it starts with a 4, that means that it is conventional, not organic.
Throw it out the door.
It starts with a 4, throw it out the door. From our certified holistic health coach. Did you make that up?
Yes.
All right. If it starts with a 4, throw it out the door. If it starts with 9,
it's
mine. Oh, I was gonna say. All right. So. We should trademark that.
Little tip.
Did you make that up?
Yeah, I just thought it was.
All right, well, it's yours. All right, so go organic. Number 2 is green cleaning and cosmetics. You can get on ewg.org
Yes.
and you can look up your household cleaners and your cosmetics and see where they rank. That's ewg.org, and you can look at a lot of different things too. They've got user guides and consumer guides on there, and
Very helpful.
super helpful. And so ewg.org is another one. Number 3, 100% organic grass-fed beef.
Yes.
100% organic 100% of the time. You got to make sure that it is 100% start to finish, because many times if it's not 100% grass-fed and grass-finished, then they'll end it with grain, with the cow.
They'll fatten them up at the end. It's not helpful. Yeah.
Yep.
The ratio of omega-3 and 6 is not good for your health. There's a lot of concerns with that.
Yeah, 100%.
That's huge.
Number 4 is minimize EMF exposure, and we mentioned some of the safe sleeves and the things you can do. One is plug in directly to the internet wherever available.
Yeah.
So
Avoid Wi-Fi.
Avoid Wi-Fi. You can even do a switch that flips off your Wi-Fi at night. And again, I did a whole episode with Dr. Libby Darnell, so you can get on School of Holistic Living. You can find that on there. On all the different ways that you can protect yourself against EMF exposure. Safe sleeves are great. They also have them for computers, and you can also get a meter to read in your home and tell which outlets are emitting. If you have any boxes on your house for your electrical and any that's coming from that, those meters emit a ton of EMF and a lot of EMF exposure, so you can learn all about that, and we talk through that on School of Holistic Living.
That's great.
Number 5, medications. So
Yes.
medications and immunizations. So working with your practitioner, I guess, is my caveat. Do I have to do a disclaimer? I have to do a disclaimer. So working with your practitioner, those who put you on that medication to help you have a plan for your future. And I say medications and immunizations because why? Because immunizations, a big factor when it comes to toxicity, and it's not just the heavy metals, but polysorbate 80, and there's many chemicals that you need to be aware of. They have an entire court system dedicated to just the injury from the immunizations, and so you have to be aware of what's going into your body and make the decision that's appropriate for you, which you always should have a choice when it comes to these things, and you still do. So that's number 5. Water filtration is number 6. Water filtration. What's the best water filtration? Well, if you get it from a natural spring, that's going to be your best option.
Yeah, loaded with minerals and just the pure source.
And you can find those online. Locate a natural spring. Just get on your search engine and look up natural spring water close to me. There's natural springs where you can go and fill up your own water. Second best would be reverse osmosis. So that's going to be another a really good option. You can get reverse osmosis at the store. You can refill your jugs. Just make sure when you refill your jugs that it's glass that you're refilling your jugs and not plastic, because plastics are a huge source of toxicity that we really didn't even cover very much.
Right.
But again, it's getting worse and worse. And the 7th step when it comes to detoxing is just knowing yourself, knowing your body. What are the markers of detoxification that are off? How toxic are you when it comes to this? Do you have more cells that are becoming more toxic because of the mercury, the lead, or the aluminum? How would you ever know? If you don't know what you don't know, then it's kind of shooting in the dark. And we see a lot of these gimmicky, I shouldn't say gimmicky, there's just a lot of things on the internet out there that just I don't know about that, because it's kind of flying in the dark there, and it's all these things telling you, a 10-day detox and you've cleansed your body.
Or even just a quick survey, how do you feel? And it's just based off of just stereotypes and age and gender, not even specific to that person's needs.
Yes, 100%. And I'm just, there's so many people who probably fall victim to those types of things. And so the best thing is to always test instead of to guess. Like, me and my family, we know what our markers are, we know where our metabolic deficiencies are, and each one of us are fairly unique, and we also know what levels of toxicity we've been exposed to, and then we have a plan to help to get those things out. It's a constant, never-ending game of trying to be healthy and healthier, and constantly cleansing, because when are you 100% cleansed of 100% of all chemicals? It just doesn't happen. Right now there's chemicals in this carpet glue. I saw them laying this carpet. I know there's chemicals in the carpet glue. I know how toxic our indoor environment is. I know we're going to be exposed to things with just food consumption. So it's a never-ending process of trying to get healthier and healthier, and that's why I recommend metabolic analysis and toxicity testing. We call that MAT testing, and that really helps to identify what your markers are, what you need to do. And so, several of our patients, they have already,
Yes.
Patients who work with us have done this, they understand what it is, and they have a plan in place. I just feel better when there's a quarterback when it comes to the wellness and more customization when it comes to the approach for health.
Absolutely. And it's been incredible just witnessing stories just of patients who are committed to detoxing their home and their lifestyle and their mindset, and just seeing the before and afters has been incredible. Just Kim coming in with over 14 different medications, juggling.
Wow.
And just had so many question marks about how long she's going to have to take them. She hasn't been seeing a lot of improvements. She just feels like enslaved in the medical model. And so seeing that she has power over her health is so amazing. And seeing her just change, cleanse, and just get the specific help she needed, it totally changed her life.
Yeah, I remember when we first tested Tony, and we saw all the markers that were off, and just what needed to happen there, and just some level of toxicity exposure. And now here he is, he's down 70 pounds.
Yes,
His,
A1C number is
A1C's
dropped.
gone down, so no longer considered necessarily diabetic anymore. Not on any medications. Where did have blood pressure issues at one time. So you think about all the people who are struggling with their health and who just need a more customized approach to their health and health care. And it doesn't happen by accident. These people worked hard. They worked their tail off. Yes, they got the testing done, but then there was follow-up on recommendations, and many of them went through a vitality cleanse to cleanse their guts, to customize nutrition to make sure their nutrients that they absolutely needed for themselves, cleanse out heavy metals, even parasites to help cleanse from parasites. So they worked their tail off. This wasn't just something that, I don't want to paint a picture that it's, health comes passively. Health comes actively. It comes from working your tail off. And so someone once said, here recently, you're really lucky. Talk about being healthy. Really lucky. It's like, man, I wish I could tell you all the work and effort and money that I put into being healthy, and I wouldn't call that luck. So, listen, health comes not on accident. It happens on purpose. And so you've got to invest in your health. You've got to continuously be working on yourself, and it's a never-ending game.
Yeah.
We call it constant, never-ending improvement, and that doesn't just apply to, business, it applies to health.
Yeah, what a better time to be intentional, as we have maybe more time on our hands to really reflect and think about our health. This is the opportunity to learn more about what your body needs and how to really get to the root cause of what's causing those symptoms or issues. So I'm really, really thankful for just your heart behind helping people and the science behind it, and going back to how the body is amazing. Your body is amazing, and we want to be able to help you achieve your health goals and really live your best life. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Now I feel